threatening retaliatory tariffs. We'll get to that in a minute. Pre-market numbers on Wall Street, though, they're trading up this morning. Dow futures up 125, NASDAQ futures up as well, and the S&P, the all-important S&P, trading up 12. World markets, they gave up modest early gains, drifting lower. Let's bring in our guest this morning to discuss it all. Rebecca Walser joining us each Friday here on America's First News, wealth advisor, tax attorney, also the author of Wealth Unbroken, Growing Wealth Uninterrupted by Market Crashes, Taxes, and Even Death. The website, walserwealth.com. Rebecca, good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Matt. Thanks for having me.
So markets are up this morning, but yesterday that wasn't necessarily the case when these tariffs were announced. They're going through today. We have the retaliatory tariffs apparently coming our way from not only the EU, but Canada and Mexico as well. What are investors looking at right now?
You know, this is, again, uncharted territory. I've read a lot of analysis that nothing like this has happened really in 4 decades. I think President Trump, the picture I get in my head of him is like he's got this wheelbarrow of apples, and everything in it is, one issue in the world or another. And you've got, imports and exports, in there, and the trade imbalance in there. And he really seems to want to take quick action on a lot of things. And when it doesn't happen, and tariffs and global trade is probably the most difficult situation he's going to have negotiating outside of geopolitical wars and stuff like that, because it's global, right? And there's so many invested interests, and everyone wants to protect themselves. So when he doesn't get quick action, I think what he does is, and this is the picture I'm getting now, and I've sort of watched him over the last, period of time since he's been in office, is he sort of just, shakes the whole apple cart, and all the apples kind of come into the air, and then and they settle back down, and probably things ultimately will settle out. But I feel like this is a true negotiating tactic of him, that if he doesn't get quick action, doesn't get quick resolution, quick wins, he does this. He takes these really unprecedented actions, and then, he says, okay, now I know I'm serious, and let's fix this, and let's deal with it. And so obviously, there's going to be retaliation, of course, from Mexico, Canada, and of course the EU, of course. But it's shocking, really, and the markets didn't like it this week. This has been a really tumultuous week.
I think it's always shocking when the U.S. accuses Canada of anything. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau calling it unprecedented yesterday and unacceptable.
Yes.
Let's talk about Italy. The anti-establishment five-star movement and right-wing league, they scored a victory Thursday in forming Western Europe's first populist government. Now, markets were roiled earlier in the week because this was up in the air, the first populist government. Why have they been calmed now all of a sudden?
Well, it's interesting. You've got the politicians becoming politicians. When you're running for office, you can say a lot of crazy things. And then when you actually go to form a government and actually be, actually implement it, of course, they'll be sworn in today, you have to actually become political. And so you had all of them, basically the Italian populist groups, two main parties, were proposing this finance minister that had written a paper or a guide on withdrawing Italy from the euro. And so this was, something that once they proposed this as their finance minister after they got elected in March, was a big, huge problem, because Italy is the 4th largest economy in the EU, and that would obviously upset that balance. And we've got a lot of other things happening in Italy at the same time. Spain, their prime minister has been ousted for corruption. Germany is obviously weakened. EU still hasn't decided completely, or Britain, leaving the EU. There's a lot of stuff going on in the EU. And Italy, all of a sudden becoming, implementing a finance minister who has written a guide on getting Italy out of the EU is completely upsetting. But what you have had now, since the global markets were like, oh my gosh, is these populist groups, basically now taking this guy out of the picture as the finance minister, demoting him to a different position. He's still in the government, but not in the same position. And so you have a global, settling of, you're going to toe the line. I don't know that that's the case. It's going to remain to be seen. They're going to be sworn in. Once they're sworn in, then we'll really see what's going to really happen. But that's why you saw this crazy upheaval and then sort of a calming, because they are agreeing to become political politicians, right? And sort of keep things stable. Once you run government, you realize all these things actually happen. So it's really interesting that Trump's tariffs are coming out on the heels of this populist movement in Italy and all of this EU uncertainty, because I feel like he is again thinking strategically that might be a thing to leverage, that now that, the EU has got things going on, now is the time when they are sort of weaker, when they do have big members, wondering to fix some things that he sees as a not a win for America.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, valid point too. Remains to be seen. We'll keep an eye on it. What is going on with Sears? I mean, we have this familiar announcement almost every time there's reports. Sears closing more stores, sales continue to shrink, losses continue to grow. 63, a list of 63 stores. It said it will close in September. Is it doing anything to help help the cause here?
Matt, this is the end of an American legacy, and we're seeing it really. First, Sears has, let's just go back for one quick second. Sears and Kmart merged in 2005, and they had a 5-good-year run. So their last profitable year, and this is the shocking thing, their last profitable year was 2010. Since 2010, Sears Holdings, which is the main owner of all of the Sears, stores and Kmart stores, has lost $11.2 billion since 2010. So this has been a total loser since the last 8 years. And they have done some strategic moves to make that different. So last year, 2017, they sold off their Craftsman, their really popular, tools division called Craftsman. They sold that to Black & Decker for multi-million dollars. I have the $900 million they sold it for. And so they had a model that said, hey, you know what? We are not viable. And they're not saying this, but this is what I'm saying to you.
Sure.
They are seeing that their business model is outmoded in the age of Amazon, and certainly in the age of Walmart, who's their main retail competitor. They have realized they've been outmoded. That's what prompted the merger and store closing. They closed 400 stores in the last couple of years. So they've seen that, but what they are starting to realize is, a company that is overall business model doesn't work, is not worth anything, and liquidation and bankruptcy would be their alternative. Let's not do that route. Let's actually sell off our good, brands and our good business, businesses within the business, which is Craftsman, which is Kenmore. And they found success in that last year with Craftsman. So I think they're leveraging that and saying, they're sort of starting to sell off assets almost as if they were in a liquidation, but not formally declaring it. And I feel like they've really realized that they're not going to be able to continue to be a retail shop. And this is what they're doing. This is what they're doing to make it worth something for them and their shareholders.
Yeah, good point. Rebecca Walser joins us each Friday this hour here on America's First News, the website walserwealth.com. Have a great weekend. We'll talk to you again next week. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Matt.
All right.